Thank you for tuning in to this special edition, this Hall of Fame edition of Pro Wrestling Proverbs. To keep up on all WrestleMania news, follow us on Twitter at PW Proverbs. Want to listen to our WrestleMania review show? Make sure you follow us on SoundCloud at Pro Wrestling Proverbs. If you want to send in your reactions, your comments, or any questions you have for us, please send us an email at ProWrestlingProverbs@gmail.com.
With the first inductee in the WWE Hall of Fame being Andre the Giant back in 1993, and continuing its legacy up until today, we have seen many legends of the sport, superstars, celebrities, tag teams, even factions all appear in the Hall of Fame. And every one of them is great, if not greater, than the other. With additions this year such as Bill Goldberg, the Dudley Boys, and others, it is another chance for us to recognize some of the greatest members of the professional wrestling dynasty. The WWE has provided a great Hall of Fame, although not physical, but it still gives fans a chance to recognize those that they have watched for years, especially with the legacy area being added to the Hall of Fame. So legends of yesteryear, such as your Lou Theszes and your Pat O'Connors, can be recognized. Even though many people have been recognized in the WWE Hall of Fame, there's still many that need to go in, and some that we here at Pro Wrestling Proverbs feel should go in before others. Here on the first edition of our Top 10 series, we will bring to you each of our Top 10 list for Hall of Famers who need to go in to the WWE Hall of Fame sooner rather than later. These participants can be single superstars, female superstars, additions to the celebrity wing, or maybe even tag teams or factions. This list will not be in any particular order, and it is just based on who we each as hosts feel should go into the WWE Hall of Fame. We will give a brief little synopsis as to why, but I will kick it off to Anthony for his first of his dream Hall of Famers.
When I was making my list, I tried to figure out who is a headliner. Who is somebody down the line next year, 5 years from now, even 10 years from now, who knows, who's going to be a bona fide headliner. Who's not in the Hall of Fame yet? None other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Arguably one of the biggest wrestling superstars of all time. A huge star outside of the wrestling scene. Debuting as Rocky Maivia, and then transitioning from that character into a heelish The Rock, becoming The Rock, and truly in his career just taking off from there. Then headlining WrestleManias with Steve Austin, Hogan, and eventually John Cena. There's not much. Rock's just a bona fide Hall of Famer. He will be, no doubt about it, he'll enter eventually. It's just a matter of when.
When he decides to hang up his boots.
Yes. He might not decide. His Hollywood insurance company might decide. But, I don't know. It's uncertain if he'll wrestle another match. But when he finally decides to hang it up, at time to officially retire from the ring, even though he technically is, he's not a part-timer or a full-timer. He'll be in the Hall of Fame one day. Who do you have for your
To begin, I'm going to
number one?
start because I have two celebrities that I feel should have already been in before others, such as Snooki and Drew Carey and now Kid Rock. So I'm going to start with one of my celebrities. The first is Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper was the perennial celebrity in WWF, although other celebrities had been involved in previous years in wrestling, such as your Andy Kaufmans or even Muhammad Ali in Japan. Cyndi Lauper helped bring rock and wrestling to its forefront, including Captain Lou Albano in her music video, eventually feuding with Roddy Piper at the War to Settle the Score, and then managing Wendy Richter to the WWF Women's Championship at the very first WrestleMania. A moment that seeing her and Wendy dancing in the ring while Wendy held the title will surely live on in the memories of wrestling fans, but also the video clips for wrestling fans, as when they show WrestleMania 1 and then WrestleMania in general highlights, that is one that they tend to show often.
She definitely deserves a spot. If you're looking at celebrity wing, I think she deserves to be in sooner than some of the others. Not to call anybody out, Kid Rock. But yeah, definitely deserves it. Speaking of somebody who definitely deserves it, who should go in, but politics is holding them back. I got Owen Hart here. A true mastermind inside the ring, one of the greatest workers of all time. Uh, his match with Brett at WrestleMania 10, I think really solidified him like in the minds of all wrestling fans. And then his unfortunate, untimely death. Really, it's sad that he's not in already, in my opinion. Politics aside, don't want to get into it. But Owen's just one of those people, one of those characters. Nobody ever has anything bad to say about Owen in any type of shoot, interview, any documentary.
He always was loved, and then even he was a decorated champion. I mean, Intercontinental, European, and Tag Team Champion. I have a feeling that if he would have lived, he would have won a heavyweight title in some
Definitely.
fashion. Whether it would be in WWE or whether he moved on to WCW or ended up in NWA TNA, he would have won some sort of heavyweight gold. Yeah, it's a shame that due to family politics that he and then the entire Hart Foundation are going to have a tough time to get into the hall.
Yes, our foundation should eventually go in.
Speaking of wrestling politics, a name that I think should go in is Bruiser Brody. Bruiser Brody, of course, another unfortunate name in the wrestling business, as he was murdered in showers while on a overseas tour. Um, People might argue, oh, he never really did much for WWE or WWF, but he was a giant that traveled territory to territory. He made his biggest name in Texas and in Japan, teaming with Stan Hansen. He and Abdullah the Butcher, also here in America, had matches just across the states, even in Canada. And they were always hardcore, and they were top of the line. Bruiser Brody's influence can be seen even today. I don't know if when Daniel Bryan comes back, if he'll still do it, but the fuzz and the fur that he wore on his boots was as a tribute to Bruiser Brody. When Luke Harper wrestled on the Independents, he wrestled as Brody Lee, an obvious tribute because of how much they look alike. Bruiser Brody was one of the first big men that didn't fall to the big men stigma. He would wrestle well, and had he lived and he had a longer career, I believe we would have seen him fight Hogan in the WWF, fight Ric Flair in WCW, even make appearances in ECW because of him being an originator of the hardcore type style.
Moving on to my number 3, our number 3 Hall of Famer that I believe should go in eventually. When I was making this list, I try to get one of each area. So this would be my manager selection. I think Jim Cornette, now that he is kind of on good terms with the company again. He was at the Hall of Fame last year. He's been filming shows for the WWE Network, WWE photo shoot,
Even
a table for 3.
even referencing some of his past, I guess you'd say mishaps, because I know one of the things he filmed on the network was about him yelling in the street before a Shotgun Saturday Night taping. So, I mean, he's referencing past, events that some he knows how to make fun of himself, and that's good that he's back in good graces with Vince and everyone.
Yes. Just taking out like his I don't know what to call it, his meme
Yeah,
outside of the ring here this past couple years. His takes on Kevin Dunn and
Donald Trump.
Vince Russo, everybody in the company. Uh, just his work as a manager coming up with the Midnight Express. He's definitely one of the top 5 managers, probably even top 3 behind Bobby and whoever else you want to put up there with alongside him. Bobby Brain is obviously number 1 in everybody. He even admits that. And then even this time as a backstage producer and writer during the Attitude Era.
Yeah, Jim had a career. I mean, he was technically one of the managers of Yokozuna during his heavyweight championship run. When he came to the WWF, they had Bobby Heenan introduce him, and they always had Bobby Heenan introduce the big talents from the NWA. So that shows something where his name would be up there with Arn and Tully, and then Rick, and then I mean, you look at people like John Cena and Randy Orton and Batista. He helped get them over down in OVW.
Yep.
Even Brock.
He's one of the big players in OVW, and everybody who developed through there in that era, all the stars you saw during the Ruthless Aggression era, can be contributed in somewhat to the teachings of Jim Cornette.
And even the early days of TNA people like Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, even more recent people like Bryan Danielson and Seth Rollins, who was Tyler Black, Jim Cornette helped with Ring of Honor. So a lot of your 2000s and 2010s personas are due to James E.
He should go in the Hall of Fame just for his altercation he got in with Santino at Cobo Hall in Detroit.
Yeah, that was
that's really enough for me.
The fact that it seemed like Santino did it himself, and then Jim walked away from it. So Jim Cornette is a character for sure. Piggybacking off of yours, I'll announce my tag team. My tag team is the Midnight Express, but I would like to induct 2 iterations of it, but as the one group itself. The first being Beautiful Bobby, and then Dennis Condrey. They were the original Midnight Express in the NWA. They were just a dominating group, but then the most recognizable is Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan, NWA Tag Team Champions, NWA US Tag Team Champions. They, of course, were the first team to hold both simultaneously, which would, comparing it to singles competition, would be like winning the heavyweight and the US title at the same time, which is a big accomplishment, especially since at the time the NWA had tag teams such as the Rock and Roll Express, the Legion of Doom, the Steiner Brothers, Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, Sid Vicious, and Dan Spivey. There were so many teams that could have held the different titles, and yet the Midnight Express held on to both. That shows how good they were, and as Jim Cornette talked about at the Hall of Fame induction of the Rock and Roll Express, the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express is a feud that has gone on for over 30 years now and still draws packed houses to independent shows. And it is just amazing the work that someone like Beautiful Bobby has put in over an entire career. Uh, it's sad that Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan won't be able to go in separately, but I think because they've done a lot for the business just in terms of the work and the wrestling style, but they are deserving of going in as a tag team. There's no question about it. The Midnight Express is really one of the last big tag teams that need to go in. And without them in the Hall of Fame, I think it shows that the Hall of Fame is lacking. But once the Midnight Express gets inducted, then it'll show that the tag team division of the Hall of Fame is, in my eyes, completed.
Moving on to my fourth. Speaking of tag teams, I have a stable more. I decided to go with the stable instead of a tag team.
Okay.
I went with a stable that revolutionized pro wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
kind of jump-started the Monday Night War, made it competitive.
Yeah.
Or not so competitive in WWF's case, because with the introduction of these three men coming together, and WCW just Monday Nitro just took off in ratings.
Mm-hmm.
The NWO, the New World Order, Hall, Nash, and Hogan.
Okay.
I say just the three main ones.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously want all 500 members coming out here on stage.
Right.
But the most recognizable pro wrestling T-shirt probably.
Mm-hmm.
The most influential group backstage at WCW. It's hard to picture a world, an Attitude Era, without the NWO and their influence, especially in WCW. You can even say that the spawning of NWO created D-Generation X as a response. So who knows, without NWO, we wouldn't have what we have today in wrestling.
Yeah, because without DX, there's really no inspiration for Bullet Club. So the NWO is still even continuing today. I mean, even with the Too Sweeting, they're still being recognized by fans because the Bullet Club admits that's where the inspiration is drawn from.
Well, yeah, you gotta think even deeper. Without D-Generation X, Triple H probably doesn't. Who knows? Triple H probably doesn't become as big a star as he did. He doesn't marry Stephanie McMahon. He doesn't go on to form Evolution. He doesn't go on to take control of the company. Shawn Michaels probably leaves, probably defects to WCW because he doesn't have nothing creatively to do. WWF might go out of business. It's just so weird to think about if NWO wasn't around, how different wrestling would be. There might not be mainstream wrestling because WCW was going to go under either way with the merge of Time Warner and AOL and all that.
The competition kickstarted McMahon. It gave him what he needed.
Yeah, gave him a global platform to make his empire that he has today.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, NWO. We gotta get to click as many rings as possible here.
The global reign of the NWO was felt in Japan, specifically when members such as Masahiro Chono and then my next person I believe should be in joined and helped form the NWO Japan. This person is the Great Muta. The Great Muta, of course, debuting to American audiences in the late 80s in the NWA, managed by Gary Hart, famed manager who came from Texas, managed the Great Kabuki, another great performer who should be in eventually. But Muta had a bigger mainstream appeal. Fought Sting, fought Flair, fought Luger, fought the rest of the Horsemen. Even though he was there for a short time, his NWA television title, memorable. When he came back to WCW in the late 90s, he actually won the Tag Team Championship with Vampiro. He's made appearances on TNA TV lately. Great Muta is a legend of the sport, and he he is one that the Japanese audience definitely continuously looks up to. His spitting of the mist, although adapted from kabuki, is used by many superstars now, more recognizably Tajiri. But Muta's kicks and his high octane offense that he brought with him from Japan was almost unseen at the time, and that, along with Sting's high energy or Flair's technicality, they do great matches. So, although, as I said, he was not seen by North American audiences often, Great Muta's induction is definitely deserved for the WWE Hall of Fame.
My next pick also had a good run in Japan as well, and all over the world. He just had open heart surgery. Big Van Vader. Vader, it's time, it's time, it's Vader time. It's Vader's time to go into the WWE Hall of Fame. We talk about people, we talk about Braun Strowman today, how he's an athletic big man. He gets around. Vader was one of the first.
Yeah.
Just how agile he was in the ring. Just his work, even outside of WWE, everywhere he went, he was successful in some way. Just not alone. I believe Vader, rightfully so, just deserves a spot.
One of the first, after Turner acquired them, one of the first WCW champions was Vader. He's one of the more recognizable, up there with Stan Hansen, and now, your AJ Styles and your Brock Lesnar's, one of the more recognizable white Gaijin athletes in Japan for the pro wrestling sport. Vader's definitely deserved. Mick Foley recently has petitioned on his Facebook and his Twitter feed to get Vader in the Hall of Fame, especially for everything that he did for Mick's career, and then just the careers of others in general, as Vader had such a long career. He recently did with, was it Will Ospreay, the match where he called people out about like the spots and the flipping. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah. That one really
Yeah.
good match, and all the old timers hated. And he challenged. Yeah, he challenged.
Yeah, it was
Ospreay to
Ospreay.
him. Yeah, it was Will Ospreay.
Yeah. So it's still, Vader's still a part of the wrestling world even today. Speaking of big men in the sport of wrestling, my next one came to my mind when I spoke about Hillbilly Jim going in the Hall of Fame, and how I said the majority of the golden era seems to be in the Hall of Fame, but then that's when I realized King Kong Bundy had not yet been inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Bundy, most recognizable for WrestleMania 2, the steel cage with Hogan, WrestleMania 3, elbow dropping the midget, being one of Undertaker's WrestleMania opponents. But Bundy also had a grand career in Texas as a part of Paul Ellering's original Legion of Doom with the Road Warriors and Jake Roberts. He fought Fritz von Erich before Fritz von Erich had his infamous heart attack on screen. A faked heart attack, as why it's infamous. But Bundy played the big man so well, but what a lot of people don't realize is he really wasn't tall. He was just stocky. And he had many good matches with people like Hogan and Andre, and then Hillbilly Jim. So it's well deserved, especially main eventing the second WrestleMania. I think main eventing WrestleMania in general, you deserve a Hall of Fame spot, especially one of that magnitude, with being Bobby Heenan's first attempt to take the title from Hogan at Mania. It's a shame that Bundy is the last real giant of that era not to be in.
My first and only woman inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame. one of the true trailblazers of what the WWE now calls the women's revolution. Uh, Even though it might be a little while before she gets inducted because of her sexual allegation lawsuit that she has, sexual harassment lawsuit that she filed against Vince McMahon and the company. But anyway, Sable, uh, she was the second women's champion after they reinstated the championship.
Yep.
Uh, her, her feuds with Jacqueline and Mark Merrow, her now ex-husband, truly established her as a what's the word I'm looking for here?
Trailblazer.
I already said trail. I'm trying to expand my vocabulary, but we'll go with trailblazer for now. She's a true trailblazer of the WWE divas at the time. I feel like she gets lost when we're talking about people from that era, because we talk about obviously Jacqueline, Ivory, then later Trish and Lita. Sable gets kind of left out of those conversations in WWE today. She's married to Brock Lesnar now, but she actually performed in the ring really well. One of the very few female wrestlers that were considered a sex symbol but could also wrestle. We'll see later in the company during the Ruthless Aggression era, we'd have all these models coming in, looking hot, trying to be a sex symbol like Sable. They couldn't work as well as her, I'd say.
Yeah, she was originally Merrow's manager. Well, started out as Triple H's manager and then became Merrow's. She kind of just got thrown into the ring, and then she even honed her craft when she made her comeback to the SmackDown brand in about 2004. And yeah, Sable is probably the last recognizable woman wrestler from that era, the late 90s, to not go in. And like you said, the lawsuit, and then I also think the fact that she's been in Playboy so much is going to keep her from it, because that's one of the recognizable aspects of her career. And as though they say they don't like to dwell on the past, I believe she was the first to be on the cover of Playboy twice in 1 year. And I mean, that's something that's going to follow, especially with the recent passing of Hugh Hefner. It will see win, and I'm sure it's only a matter of time, especially like you said with Brock Lesnar being inducted.
Yeah, she's definitely going in. It's just a matter of when.
And
Yep, 1999.
And sticking on the concept of women's wrestling, my Hall of Fame inductee for women's wrestling would be Bull Nakano. Bull Nakano, one of two women in the early 90s to do a lot of wrestling for the WWF. She, of course, a Japanese talent, had many good matches with Alundra Blaze, formerly known and then would later become, again, Medusa, for the WWF Women's Championship. Bull Nakano was one of the first to bring that Japanese strong style to the WWF, and the fact that she was a woman during it. At the time, there wasn't very many women's wrestlers. I mean, before her and Medusa, you had Moolahs and Alani Kais and Wendy Richters, but it was a lot of hair pulling, a lot of arm drags. Bull and Medusa brought suplexes and top rope moves, and it was just high impact. Bull and Medusa put on some of the best women's matches of all time, and that was in the early 90s. And Bull Nakano, another one of those that people are petitioning to get in, this time from Medusa, a former opponent. I feel that when someone has worked with you so much as Medusa has with Bull, or Mick Foley did with Vader, and they're trying to petition you to get in, that should mean something.
Back when the Ultimate Warrior was inducted, he had this idea of honoring those behind the scenes who changed the landscape of WWE, who put the same amount of work in as the wrestlers, but they're not as recognized. This would turn into the Warrior Award, where it's more of like a PR award. Not going, don't want to get into that. Obviously, uh, it's not our it's not our platform to speak on. But if the Warrior Award was presented the way Ultimate Warrior wanted, I think this man would be very deserving. Jim Johnston, longtime composer of WWE. He's now been replaced by CFO. Is that their name?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the longest time, almost the entirety of Vince Jr.'s run
Yep.
with the company, producing theme songs for wrestlers. Any iconic theme song that you know of was composed by Jim Johnston.
There's very few that weren't.
A lot of pay-per-view themes before they start getting licensing for them.
Yep.
Not really much to say on them. It's just he works so hard for this company. He produced so much. He was such a big part of the production.
He, speaking on Warrior, on the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, he discusses that Vince gave him the idea for the Ultimate Warrior and what he was going to be about, and that's when he said he came up with the iconic theme music that he ran out of the ring with. And then he chuckles at the fact that everyone says it's so iconic because he says it's only 3 chords, and so there's not really much to it.
But you had to have such a great mind for that. To come, just even though it was just 3 chords, the way it sounds. I don't know much about music, but just putting those 3 chords together and match it to character, not even just Ultimate Warrior, but all the other characters.
Right.
They can, like the Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
What is the Undertaker without his theme?
Right.
Is he almost? I'm not gonna say he's not as iconic, but his theme song adds a lot to the characters.
Mm-hmm. For going from someone who was recognized with the music that they came out with, one man who you would recognize as soon as his music hits because it would say his name was X-Pac, but I do not believe that X-Pac himself should go in the Hall of Fame. I believe that Sean Waltman should go in the Hall of Fame due to the fact that the characters of the 1-2-3 Kid, Six, and X-Pac all combined create a legitimate Hall of Famer. The 1-2-3 Kid, of course, beating Razor Ramon, having the matches with Razor, being a part of Money Incorporated, having good matches with Brett and Shawn in the early days of the 90s, then moving on, becoming the 6th member of the NWO, as to why he was 6, winning the Cruiserweight Championship, and then he kind of kick-started the WWF's Attitude Era the night after WrestleMania when he came out, when Triple H said, in order to build an army, you go to your friends, you go to the clique, and then X-Pac came out, and he cut the promo on Hogan and Bischoff about how they said he couldn't cut the mustard, and while in WWF, he would win Intercontinental Championship, European titles, Tag Team Championships with Kane. He had a long career. I mean, he even went TNA for a brief time when it first started, when it was NWA TNA. He still wrestles actively now, and he's in probably the best shape he's been in his life.
Definitely.
He got off of all his substance abuse, and he works out more. He carries around his adorable dog Lula, who I'd like to see Lula on the Hall of Fame stage. Sean Waltman would be the, essentially final member of the clique to go in, because Triple H will go in when he's officially done, he says. So I have a feeling that Triple H and Vince McMahon are going to be 2 people that are inducted once they're dead. So X-Pac will be the final member of the clique that can go in for now, and it'll be nice to see them all come out again, and this time him in the fancy suit and him in the middle, since he's kind of the forgotten member of the clique, even though he provided memorable moments, besides being one of 3 people to be a part of DX and the NWO.
Sean Waltman is truly one of a kind.
Yeah.
So is my next entrant into the WWE Hall of Fame, Rob Van Dam, RVD. His run in ECW, becoming a star in ECW, transitioning to the WWF and everything he did there. His athleticism alone warrants a Hall of Fame spot. He won hardcore titles.
Yep.
The ECW World Title. I know you're the big RVD guy. He won the WWE title.
Yep.
Tag titles.
Yep. The Intercontinental. The second Mr. Money in the Bank.
He was a Money in the Bank.
He was the longest reigning ECW television champion. He actually had to give it up due to injury. He held it for over 2 years. And then you figure with an ECW television title, he's constantly defending it. When he jumped to TNA, he won the X Division title. He was a heavyweight champion. He was the one who gave Vince the idea for ECW One Night Stand. He won ECW Tag Team Championship with Sabu and a great team that would always have just insane matches together. His tag team titles in WWE, he won the Raw one with Kane and Booker T. He won the SmackDown one with Rey Mysterio. He was involved, in my mind, one of the sleeper matches of all time with the Tag Team TLC match where Kane defended the Raw Tag Team Championship by himself against Bubba and Spike, Christian and Chris Jericho, and then Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy. Rob Van Dam's career is uncomparable just due to the fact that he always seemed to be in the main event, even though you never realized that. In ECW, he feuded with the top guys such as, Sabu, Tommy Dreamer. He was a part of Jerry Lawler's pro WWF anti-ECW group. When he came to WWE, he had the great matches with Guerrero and Benoit, Hardy and Jericho. Then he went on to the main event with Edge, Cena, Triple H. He was in the first Elimination Chamber. He's the one who broke Triple H's larynx with the leg drop from the top of the pod. And then, going to TNA and main eventing with Sting and Angle and Abyss. Not to mention just the moves he did. The Rolling Thunder, the split-legged moonsault, the 5-star frog splash. Rob Van Dam, he made, I don't want to say he made wrestling cool, but he was one of the more laid back and one of those people that you looked and you didn't necessarily think he could be a wrestler or would be a wrestler, but he proved that you could be.
Rob Van Dam has a workout that only he can do.
Yep.
He'll set up 2 cinder blocks or anything. He'll do splits on them, and he'll take a kettle, dumbbell, whatever, 50 pounds, whatever, 100 pounds.
Yep.
And he lifts it from the split position. Unbelievable. I can't even wrap my head around ever doing that, let alone doing the splits on something.
Right. Since I was going to do Rob Van Dam, I was going to do Rob Van Dam or this person that I'm going to discuss next. Since you did Rob Van Dam, I'll do this person. It's Shane Douglas. It is the original ECW champion. Shane Douglas, was the guy threw the NWA title down after winning the tournament and said, the Ric Flairs, the Rick Steamboats, the Dusty Rhodes, they can all kiss my ass. He, before that, was a part of the Dynamic Dudes in WCW with John Laurinaitis. He won WCW Tag Team Championships with Rick Steamboat. He won the ECW television title. He held the heavyweight title on multiple occasions. He wrestled with his arm in a cast for many months. He formed the Triple Threat, one of the most recognizable ECW stables of all time, which included, at times, him with Benoit and Malenko, him with Chris Candido and Lance Storm, him with Bigelow and Candido. The triple threat were always, I mean, no pun intended, they were a threat to deal with. He also was in WCW leading the Revolution, which was him, Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit. Obviously, a future involvement for the Radicals in the WWF.
Yeah.
He was supposed to come with the Radicals, but did not make his way there due to contract disputes with WWF. He's a former Intercontinental Champion. He was Dean Douglas when that happened, although not a bright moment in his career. Still winning the Intercontinental title at that time meant something. He even participated in TNA during its beginnings. And now you can see him on House of Hardcore with Tommy Dreamer, showing that he can still wrestle and he still is the franchise of whatever company he is in.
You can hear results in the news from House of Hardcore on our Independent Impulse show hosted by Logan. So you can check that out. Speaking of good shows, my next entrant to WWE Hall of Fame had a great show. The Peep Show. Christian, I believe, is a deserving member of Hall of Fame. I think he should go alongside his best friend Edge and get inducted. One of my favorite wrestling success stories involves Christian, somebody who graduated from college with a bunch of loan debt. He evaded them unwisely for many years until he got into WWE, and JR sent him a nice check to pay off his student loans, and he decided to pay it off all at once. I forget which. I don't know if when he told the story, it wasn't on their show because they didn't have the ENC podcast or whatever yet. So I think it was on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. So I'd take a listen to that and listen to how Ed and Christian got started. But his feuds, his run as a tag team, coming in with Edge and Gangrel, then forming the Edge and Christian tag team and having all those matches with the Dudleys and the Hardys and completely reamping the tag division at that time. Then the singles run as a heel. And then his later run in WWE, finally winning the world title. I know we're skipping a lot that he did. All the mid-card titles he held.
He's another version of success story that he brings is a lot of people would credit Cody Rhodes recently with leaving WWE and proving you don't have to be there. He left WWE and went to TNA and won the NWA Championship on a couple occasions, and it was because of his performance in TNA that WWE brought him back for his run in ECW where he won the title, and then to the SmackDown brand when he won the world title. And it was because of that it showed that you didn't necessarily have to stay in WWE. This led to people like Kurt Angle and the Dudleys eventually following suit and coming to TNA.
Yeah.
Now they're back.
I think his run in TNA really helped him in his stock.
Yeah.
That we saw him as a main event player.
Yeah, he never had really the opportunity in WWE, and going to TNA where they needed just anyone, and since he had that WWE stigma attached to him, he could do it.
And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think he's the only one to show up on a TNA event under a WWE contract. Is that correct?
Yeah.
He was a champion too at the time, wasn't he?
I believe so.
I thought he was Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah, he appeared. That's when they did the trade, so Flair could appear at the Hall of Fame for the Four Horsemen, and Christian appeared there to induct Sting into the TNA Hall of Fame. That was a big moment for Christian because it showed what he had brought to the company. As I said, at that time, they needed him in the main event, and his matches with Jeff Jarrett, his matches with Sting, they're ones to go back and watch. And his reign with the Christian Coalition, which included a young AJ Styles in it, was a stable which Christian got to show his charisma on the mic, and he really amplified his Captain Charisma gimmick. Speaking of someone amplified to 10, we spoke earlier about big men in the business, and there is none bigger or more amped up Then Bam Bam Bigelow. He is one that has needed to go in for a while now. Wrestling everywhere. The NWA, WWE, ECW, WCW. He was a part of the first Survivor Series main event. He ended up wrestling the likes of Andre and then teaming with Hogan for a brief period. He went to WCW. He went to, as I said, ECW. ECW is a part of the Triple Threat. Won the ECW Heavyweight and Television Championship. Appeared in WCW, feuding first with Goldberg, then going to the WCW Hardcore division, as most ECW stars did at that time. And then he also won the tag team championships with the Jersey Triad, which was DDP, Canyon, and himself. Bam Bam Bigelow is one of the first big men that could move around the ring, a la a Bruiser Brody. But the thing is, Bigelow would do moonsaults and top rope moves, something that was crazy to wrestling fans. And something that was even crazier was the fact that he had the tattoos on his head of the flames that matched his flame ring attire. Bam Bigelow also, fun little tidbit, was on the very first show that Paul Heyman helped promote, as said by Paul Heyman on his WWE documentary.
You'd think he'd be in sooner. He's in every video game every year, so he's under some sort of Legends contract.
I remember he was on, it was like SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 even. He was on way back then. Yeah, it was, I remember I was excited because I never gotten to use Bam Bam Bigelow before, and now, yeah, especially with the resurgence in ECW and popularity and how he was in the main event at its height, and then with Goldberg's popularity, and that was one of his better feuds in WCW, I'm surprised Bigelow hasn't been in yet.
So with my final induction, I finally have my celebrity wing inductee. You had Cyndi Lauper earlier. Mine also from the first WrestleMania. One of the greatest boxers of all time, Muhammad Ali. Mr. T is in the Hall of Fame. I believe Muhammad Ali should be right alongside him just because of what they did at WrestleMania 1. He's one of the very few celebrities who would theoretically be in the celebrity wing that actually contributed wrestling wise, like Mr. T, like a Lawrence Taylor.
Yep. Yeah, it was one of the sound bites you always hear when talking about celebrities, or is Pat Patterson saying he really wanted to fight those guys, and it's always said that Muhammad Ali really didn't understand his role at the first WrestleMania, because if you watch when Cowboy Bob Orton gets in the ring when he's not supposed to, you see Mr. T trying to hit him, and Mr. T really did want, not Mr. T, but Muhammad Ali really did want to wrestle him, and he also he was a part of the boxer versus wrestler matches with Antonio Inoki and then Gorilla Monsoon. It's even interesting that wrestlers like Superstar Billy Graham and Thunderbolt Patterson and Dusty Rhodes all credit Muhammad Ali in some form or fashion with their talking points and their talking style.
Yeah. He was a trash talker. He was one of the very first mainstream guys. They labeled him as a trash talker.
Yep.
When he was boxing in the ring, he would just talk trash. If you want to hear funny stories, look those up. Look up Muhammad Ali's opponents and see what they say about.
Yeah, definitely.
About when he was in the ring with them.
And then my final one, as I said, I bookended this Hall of Fame induction episode with celebrities. My celebrity is, of course, you mentioned him previously, Lawrence Taylor. As I said, I feel that once you've main evented a WrestleMania, it kind of should cement your status to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, not counting the men I've already mentioned, so Bigelow, Bundy, and then wrestlers that are still around today, and then excluding Benoit because he won't get in. I don't believe there's any other people who have main evented that are not in. Yeah, there's that. It is it. And the fact that Lawrence Taylor went in and put on a good match with Bam Bam Bigelow, one that really didn't have a lot of time to develop on previous episodes of the WWF, and the fact that he admits he was gassed halfway through it, but he still put on one hell of a show, and it opened the doors for other athletes to appear on wrestling programming, like Reggie White for WCW, Kevin Green for WCW, even Four Horsemen member himself, Steve Mongo McMichael, who ended up becoming United States television champion. But it was just Lawrence Taylor's involvement. It was at a time when the WWF needed a jump start, and having that mainstream involvement of, at the time, the most dominant, and I still feel to this day, dominant defensive player of all time being in the match, and just the mainstream appeal it brought. It would be akin to today if I don't know, if JJ Watt was in it. But yeah, we're looking at it now. The only individuals that have main evented a WrestleMania and that are not in the Hall of Fame are, like I said previously, King Kong Bundy, Bam Bam Bigelow, Lawrence Taylor, and then Sid Vicious. And then Sid Vicious is another one that eventually should go in as an honorable mention. Sid Vicious, former WWF Heavyweight Champion, former WCW Heavyweight Champion, United States Heavyweight Champion in WCW, Four Horsemen member. Before WCW could really saturate it with individuals like Paul Roma and Steve McMichael, he was one of the better horsemen, and also former ruler of the world, as well as owner of the cringiest wrestling video on the internet, where he jumped off of the turnbuckle and you watch his leg snap.
Yeah. That moment's forever ingrained in my head,
So,
unfortunately.
Honorable mention for whatever you know him as: Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid, Sid Justice.
Man who snapped a leg on that one YouTube video.
Yeah, any of them. I'm sure if you watch injury cringe compilations, you've seen it in some form or fashion. But to get back on track, as I said, Lawrence Taylor, a definite need. His really one-time appearance is going to be ingrained in history forever. And I think it would be kind of fitting if, say, next year, because it's going to be WrestleMania is going to be New Jersey. Bigelow's from New Jersey. The Giants play not too far. So
WrestleMania's in the stadium.
Yeah, so do Bigelow and Lawrence Taylor, and then you can capitalize on, as I said, at the time when the WWF needed it, the success of a WrestleMania.
To go over, this is my Hall of Fame class to go over one more time. We had The Rock, Owen Hart, Jim Cornette, the NWO, Vader, Sable, Jim Johnston, RVD, Christian, and Muhammad Ali.
And then mine was Bruiser Brody, Cyndi Lauper, the Midnight Express, Bull Nakano, the Great Muta, Bam Bam Bigelow, Sean Waltman, King Kong Bundy, Shane Douglas, and Lawrence Taylor. Hopefully, at one point in the future, we will see these names and many other deserving ones included in a future class of the WWE Hall of Fame.